Tonight, President Trump shakes up Washington while churches brace for immigration crackdowns.
These changes has sent a chill the spine of the Latino evangelical church.
What it means for faith communities and the nation. Plus, China's AI breakthrough sends shockwaves.
We do worry a lot about authoritarian governments developing this.
Who will win the AI arms race? And an invisible crisis.
In short, what we've witnessed is the murder of a country.
War and famine pushes millions to the brink in Sudan. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
A major shakeup in Washington, from a federal freeze, a funding freeze, to new moves on immigration and the military. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm Jenna Browder.
And in Washington, I'm John Jessup. Well, President Trump has ordered a freeze on federal funding for grants and loans.
The White House says it made the move to review whether spending complies with the president's executive orders and is in line with the philosophies and priorities of the new administration.
The freeze affects trillions of dollars that go to education programs, healthcare spending, and other social services. It's almost surely headed for a court battle because the spending has already been authorized by law. Other executive orders call on Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to roll back diversity programs in the military, revise the policy on transgender troops, reinstate back pay for military members who did not comply with COVID-19 vaccine requirements, and create a space-based missile defense system. Meanwhile, the crackdown on illegal immigration continues. ICE agents have been deployed in cities across the United States, targeting migrants found guilty of crimes and who are still in the country illegally. Newly sworn-in Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem joined agents during an early morning operation in New York City. At the White House today, also a new first. New Trump Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt held her first on-camera briefing with reporters.
All right, CBN's Kelly Wright was there, and he joins us now from the White House. So Caroline Leavitt, she talked a lot about, Kelly, how the Trump administration is dealing with mass deportations. What did she have to say?
Yeah, Jenna and John, good evening to you. She had a lot to say about immigration, but look, this is the first. We should need to point that out as you talked about it. She's the first one to do this. She's the youngest, I should say, 27 years of age, stepping into that podium as the White House press secretary. And she did address those executive orders that the president signed into last week into action. More than 300 executive orders, a lot of them dealing with mass deportation and illegal immigration. And she put the world on notice today, stating that this president, will not tolerate any illegal immigration. Here's what she had to say.
As proven by this weekend, when President Trump swiftly directed his team to issue harsh and effective sanctions and tariffs on the Colombian government, upon hearing they were denied a U.S. military aircraft full of their own citizens who were deported by this administration. Within hours, the Colombian government agreed to all of President Trump's demands, proving America is once again respected on the world stage.
Jenna and John?
Yeah, Kelly, what did she have to say about the Trump administration putting a pause on federal spending? That made a lot of news, too.
Well, just as you talked about, that has already gone into effect, and it will have some legal challenges. But she stated that this is something that DOJ, the Department of Government, and as well as the new Department of
Government Efficiency.
Government Efficiency, thank you, as well as OMB are putting together in order to make sure that the spending is adequate, that the spending is not wasting the taxpayers' dollars. But she did say that people who rely on the government and need the help from the government, they will be protected.
This is not a blanket pause on federal assistance and grant programs from the Trump administration. Individual assistance, that includes, I'm not naming everything that's included, but just to give you a few examples, Social Security benefits, Medicare benefits, food stamps, welfare benefits, assistance that is going directly to individuals will not be impacted by this pause.
Kelly, we know that the Trump administration, many are accusing, are moving at warp speed, so it's understandable. It's hard to keep up with all the different acronyms. Food prices are another major concern. Most notably, the cost of eggs have skyrocketed. How is the Trump administration dealing with the important cost of living in America?
Well, what Caroline Leavitt did today, she went to the previous administration and put the blame on President Joe Biden and his administration. Here's what she had to say about the soaring prices, not only as it affects eggs, but as it affects your pocketbook.
Prices increased 65% in this country. We also have seen the cost of everything, not just eggs. Bacon, groceries, gasoline have increased because of the inflationary policies of the last administration. As far as the egg shortage, what's also contributing to that is that the Biden administration in the Department of Agriculture directed the mass killing of more than 100 million chickens, which has led to a lack of chicken supply in this country, therefore a lack of egg supply, which is leading to the shortage.
Bottom line is a lot of people are hurting right now, and the Trump administration is vowing to do something about it to help them help themselves.
All right, senior White House correspondent Kelly Wright at the White House. Kelly, thank you. Well, as we mentioned earlier, President Trump's deportation campaign is targeting criminals in the country illegally.
That's right, and the executive order now allows for arrests and roundup in places that usually have been off limits. CBN Charlene Aaron has that story.
The new Trump administration has opened the door for federal immigration agencies to make arrests at places like schools, hospitals, and churches. This ends a policy that had been in effect since 2011 and leaves many in the Hispanic faith community on edge.
These changes has sent a chill up the spine of the Latino evangelical church.
Pastor Gabriel Salguero leads the Gathering, a Latino-led Assemblies of God congregation in Orlando.
Listen, I live in the great state of Florida, and so Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans make up large parts of our faith communities, whether they're evangelical or Catholic.
Recently, Pastor Salguero talked about concerns he and other Hispanic faith leaders share now that schools and places of worship are no longer off limits.
I've gotten hundreds of calls and texts, and the question for pastors is exactly how are these policies going to be executed in sensitive places or sensitive locations. For example, if you execute a raid in a church in the middle of a worship service, and there are citizens, permanent legal residents, there are mixed status, all sitting next to each other in worship. And so that is one of the major concerns that or if we're doing community service, teaching English as a second language, or providing food pantries. We don't ask people about their citizenship status to give them communion or to provide food for them. We're just trying to follow the gospel mandate to love our neighbor.
According to the Homeland Security Department, criminals will no longer be able to hide in America's schools and churches to avoid arrest. During an interview on Sunday's Face the Nation, Vice President J.D. Vance was asked about the issue.
Of course, if you have a person who is convicted of a violent crime, whether they're an illegal immigrant or a non-illegal immigrant, you have to go and get that person to protect the public safety. That's not unique to immigration.
Reverend Samuel Rodriguez, president of the National Hispanic Christian Leadership Conference, tells CBN News he understands the fear.
I share a bit of that concern. I want to make sure they don't cross the line, meaning the administration. I'm hearing from bishops and pastors saying last Sunday our attendance dropped 15-20% because there is a concern.
Rodriguez is confident, however, that only criminals will be targeted in such raids.
I can tell you firsthand, the administration is going to go into schools and churches and hospitals, but not to deport individuals who have been here 15, 20, 25 years who have never had a parking ticket. They're coming after the pedophiles. They're coming after the gangbangers. They're coming after the cartels, the coyotes, the human traffickers.
Still, Pastor Salguero worries about the negative impact this could have on the innocent within a congregation.
How are we going to ensure not striking fear in the citizens that are there at the same time, in children that are there at the same time?
Challenges Rodriguez says he's expressing to the White House.
I began a process in the past 48 hours to express my concern, and not just my concern, the concern of the National Hispanic Christian Leadership Conference, our network, and the concern of just Latino pastors and leaders across the country who supported him, by the way, in the election. So I am in that process as we speak.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
And a group of Maryland congregations are challenging the policy in court. 5 Quaker groups, also known as the Society of Friends, have filed suit. Coming up, the AI race is on. Can the U.S. keep up, or is it falling behind? The global stakes right after this.
Welcome back. Experts are calling it a Sputnik moment.
Yeah, China's new AI chatbot is scrambling the global race for tech dominance. DeepSeek is now #1 in Apple and Google stores. The app is like ChatGPT, but built with cheaper chips, less energy, and it's completely free. DeepSeek's rapid rise is fueling concerns about China's AI advancements. Meta is reportedly setting up war rooms to respond, with President Trump calling it a wake-up call for the U.S.
Well, Rob McDole is the director for Center of Teaching and Learning at Cedarville University in Ohio, and he joins us now. Rob, welcome to you. So can you explain, why is DeepSeek such a big deal, and why is this story so important? What does it mean for everyday Americans?
Well, as you were saying, DeepSeek has become a competitor to OpenAI, who's been leading the AI race for quite some time over the past 2.5, 3 years. And they've invested billions of dollars into this technology. Well, China, through DeepSeek, has been able to come up with a model that is just like the one that OpenAI is currently running. And that costs a lot of money. The model for DeepSeek is 25 times cheaper than what you would have to pay in order to use OpenAI's model. So you can get the same kind of power and at really bottom dollar costs.
Does this app present any kind of national security or privacy concerns, Rob?
I would say probably not, unless you're using the online service that DeepSeek provides, because you can run this model on your own laptop if you have a machine that can run it. So the only way you'd be passing data to China, which they would control the servers of DeepSeek, would be as if you use their online service. Where it has more effect probably is in that idea of undercutting the costs, because you have to remember, OpenAI, Oracle, Microsoft, they have spent billions of dollars developing this latest model together in partnerships. And to be able to keep those returns on investment coming in, they need to keep pushing. Now, the good news is they probably will, but it's going to probably cause them to kick up their timeline in the things that they were going to release.
Yeah, it's been amazing to see how it's disrupted stocks and companies like NVIDIA losing value. I want to shift to another Chinese app that's raised national security and privacy concerns, which is TikTok. There's talk that Microsoft could buy the company. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think it would be smart for them to do so. It would put them in that short video reels, so like Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts. Right now, Microsoft doesn't have an offering to compete with either of those, and they are very large consumer grade platforms, and they contain a lot of money within them. I think President Trump kind of hinted at it during his inauguration. He said somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 trillion in terms of value. So I would see Microsoft being able to handle that kind of business and takeover.
If they don't take it over, could another U.S. company come in and just create an alternative to TikTok?
I don't think so. It's too embedded. It's too connected to so many other things. And it was able to do so because it was so cheap and it was free. It really did a good job of allowing those who are providing the content to make the most money possible. And again, just like they're doing with DeepSeek, and they did also with BYD electric cars, by the way, is they're seeking to undercut the market by creating something and flooding the market with something that's extremely cheap.
Yeah. All right, Dr. Rob McDole with Cedarville University, thank you for coming on and explaining all of this to us and giving us your perspective. Thank you.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thank you.
Up next,
Millions on the brink as Sudan's civil war rages on. We take you inside the crisis after this. Welcome back. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is set to meet President Trump at the White House on February 4th, setting him up to be the first foreign leader to visit Washington in Trump's second term. The news comes as hundreds of thousands of Palestinians stream into northern Gaza as part of a fragile ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. Israel is also bracing for the release of 6 more hostages later this week.
Meanwhile, Sudan is facing a devastating humanitarian crisis. Tens of thousands of people are dead and millions displaced after nearly 2 years of civil war.
That's right, and civilians are bearing the brunt of the violence. CBN's George Thomas brings us this report from nearby Kenya.
Sudan is the invisible crisis, the biggest humanitarian crisis in the world.
The bullet-battered streets tell a story of hand-to-hand combat.
21 months of relentless fighting between 2 powerful generals for control of Sudan have wrecked the African nation.
The situation in Sudan is just awful.
It is estimated that more than 61,000 people have been killed, with many more wounded.
Attacks on hospitals, on markets, displaced persons camps, summary executions.
The U.S. is officially labeling it as genocide, while the United Nations cites the human suffering as catastrophic.
More than 11.5 million people are now estimated to be internally displaced, of whom nearly 8.8 million people have been uprooted since April 2023.
For more than a decade, Tina Ramirez's Christian group has sought to advance human rights and religious freedom in this predominantly Muslim country. She tells CBN News the war has dismantled food systems there, leaving roughly 25 million people, half the population, facing famine.
If Sudan was fully utilized for its agriculture, it could feed half of Africa. So I think that that's the tragedy here, is that Sudan could be one of the richest nations in Africa, and the people are just suffering immensely.
Nathaniel Raymond is there documenting the human suffering for Yale University.
In short, what we've witnessed is the murder of a country. We have seen the largest displacement crisis on the planet unfold while watching from space.
Using satellite images, his team at Yale's Humanitarian Research Lab has documented alleged crimes by both the Sudanese armed forces and the rival Rapid Support Forces since the war started in 2023. Raymond tells CBN News that violence from both sides is widespread, with civilians bearing the brunt.
We've seen the destruction of villages by fire. We've seen the mass killing of civilians, and we've seen the destruction of Sudan's critical infrastructure, including its hospitals, its bridges, and its ability to feed itself.
When the State Department accused the Sudanese paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, of genocide, it imposed sanctions on its leader, Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo. Former Secretary of State Anthony Blinken accuses RSF and its proxies of targeting women and girls of certain ethnic groups for rape.
The civilian population has taken just a horrible toll of life. Women are being raped everywhere from ages 8 to 75. It's just unconscionable what's happening.
Christian aid group World Vision has been on the ground there, providing relief to displaced civilians. CBN News met Simon Mani, country director for Sudan in Nairobi, Kenya.
Today, I'm making a call for the international community to come together with authorities in Sudan to bring peace in the country. Sudan is like a forgotten crisis because of what's happening in Gaza, what's happening in Ukraine. But it doesn't have to be like that.
World Vision, which has a significant presence here in the country, is at this very moment attempting to get more of its relief workers into Sudan. Meanwhile, the aid agency says more children in Sudan are displaced than any other country in the world today. Since war started, more than 3 million people, mostly women and children, have fled Sudan to neighboring countries like Chad.
Children are suffering. If you take example of Chad, 40% of children who are directed to the emergency clinics, most of them under malnourished, and now they are suffering.
World Vision says it has helped around 3 million people by delivering food, clean water, and sanitation services. Raymond says money is also driving the conflict.
What we're seeing is not just a war, it's a robbery. Sudan's wealth is being robbed, and so is its future.
Sudan is one of the continent's largest gold producers, and several countries, including Iran, Russia, Egypt, and the United Arab Emirates, are buying it in exchange for arming both sides.
Both for the Rapid Support Forces and the Sudan Armed Forces, they are taking the country's mineral wealth, which is considerable, including but not only gold, and they're selling it to outside actors. So those outside actors, including the United Arab Emirates and Iran, that are primarily fueling this conflict.
21 months into the war, there is no sign of it slowing down. If anything, it continues to escalate. Ramirez says even though Sudan remains almost forgotten, given other global conflicts, the international community cannot look away from its humanitarian catastrophe.
In comparison to Ukraine and so many other countries, this is far worse. This is something that we need to be paying attention to. We need to get President Trump to appoint a special envoy and to take the matter seriously so that the people of Sudan aren't suffering anymore.
George Thomas, CBN News, Nairobi, Kenya.
Still ahead, making beauty from ashes. Next on Faith Nation. Finally tonight, a heartwarming proposal in an unexpected place.
An Altadena couple that lost their home in the Eaton fire also found joy in the middle of the rubble. When Brian McShay and Stephanie Rayner returned to their neighborhood for the first time since evacuating, Brian was hoping he would find the engagement ring he had just purchased. Miraculously, he found the ring in a charred desk drawer, taking the opportunity then to propose.
I was on my knees and I was like, "Hey, will you marry me?" and I'm in complete PPE, zipped up with the white hood and everything.
I'm crying.
With a little bit of help from a GoFundMe campaign, the couple plans to start their new life together, still in Altadena, and it is amazing to know that that ring was still left in the drawer.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
A lot of these families, they don't know what's left if they haven't been to their homes, so to find something like that is remarkable.
Yeah, precious thing indeed.
Yeah.
Congratulations to them. Thanks for watching.
Have a great night.